All right, let's get going. Meg Linehan, go ahead.
Casey, I just was hoping that you could kind of fill us in on what the past few months have been like in terms of your journey back to this team, recovery, how you're feeling now that you are back in camp.
Yeah, to be honest, I definitely did not foresee myself being here in this spot a couple months ago. It was a rough fall, just trying to come back from injury, and ultimately decided I just needed to take some time off. And I'm glad I did. And as the winter went on, I felt a lot better. But I definitely didn't think, I wasn't sure if my time with the national team was done or not. And then ultimately got this call to come back in, and was so stoked just to get an opportunity. And I'm feeling probably the best I've felt in, I don't know, years, because I was able to get a proper off season and proper rest for the first time in a while.
Perfect. Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Thanks. Go to Steve Goff. Steve, go ahead.
Hey, Casey, thanks for your time. I was wondering, during these times where there's been a lot of discussion about Black Lives Matter and other social justice issues, how have leaders such as Becky, as the captain, stood out and kind of navigated through this period with the team and the other players?
Yeah, Becky's incredible, just on and off the field. She's a leader, and she sets the standard. And, certainly with these difficult conversations and these difficult topics, that's just continued. She stepped up big time, whether that was reaching out during these times, starting these conversations, and just leading the way.
Great. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
And let's go to Annie Costabile. Go ahead, Annie.
Hi, Casey. Thanks for your time. We talked before you left for camp, and you mentioned, not getting caught up in being part of that final roster per se, but being present, at camp and in the matches that you play in. And I wonder what your perspective is on that now, as She Believes comes to an end. Are you still approaching it from that same perspective of not trying to, think too much about that final roster, but be present in the current moment?
Yeah, I definitely have the same perspective. Just going through the whole World Cup process, I think that was one of the biggest things I learned. I definitely got caught up in, the numbers and trying to figure these things out instead of just worrying about what's going on the field. That's all that I can control, and that's where my focus has been, and it's a lot more fun that way.
Thank you.
Thanks, Annie. Let's go from Annie to Alex Ozzie. Go ahead, Alex.
Hey, Casey, thanks so much for taking the time. Following up on something that you mentioned just a moment ago about this past fall and thinking that your time with the national team might be done and taking a break, I'm curious if you could just kind of both spell out the timeline of that a little bit and some of the conversations that you were maybe having with those that were close to you as you were just contemplating all of those ideas.
Yeah, so for the fall series, I think, was that October-ish, October, November, I knew something, wasn't quite right, and, I got called into the October camp, but ultimately couldn't come in, and, that was pretty disheartening, and, I had conversations with those close with me, just, what to do. Like, you never want to turn down an invite, but you also don't want to come in when you're anything less than 100% in this environment, and so, that was difficult, and I wasn't sure if that was a mistake. Will I ever get an invite after this? But, those around me were amazing and supporting me and just ultimately said, get your body right and get healthy and, take this rest. And, if another opportunity comes, great, take full advantage of it.
And if I can just ask one follow-up, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your husband is an ER physician, is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
I think the family members of healthcare workers have had an additional burden this year, and I was wondering if you could just talk at all about kind of dealing with that and how you dealt with COVID throughout the months.
Yeah, it was definitely very difficult going through that firsthand and just seeing the toll it was taking on him, but just how he handled it, whether it was having to be separate and quarantining or, just hearing these stories that he was sharing, and how mentally exhausting it is to see everything that's going on. It was just really tough to hear, but all we could do was just, be there for each other, be there for one another, and yeah, we were able to make it through, but it was tough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. All right, the last question for Casey's first media as Casey Krueger goes to Jeff Carlisle. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thanks, Aaron. Hi, Casey. Obviously, Crystal Dunn talked about the decision to stand for the anthem prior to the last game, and she talked about getting past the protest phase and into the work phase. How did you feel about that decision? And in your view, what does that work entail? What should it entail?
Yeah, it was a collective decision. We were all on board for it. We all agreed that, it's not a forever thing to kneel. We wanted to bring attention to this matter, but ultimately the most important thing is what's going on behind the scenes, what's happening off the field. And so that's where the attention goes next. I don't have all the answers about, what the next step looks like, but there's things in the works, like Tierna kind of alluded to as well, that are pretty exciting. And so I feel great about it. I'm excited for the important things off the field, behind the scenes going on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Casey. Thanks, everybody.